Welcome back to the Farm Show on Westplex Talk 1045. It is Saturday, November 22nd, 2025, and you're listening to B Block. That's what we call the second segment of the show. Earlier this week, on my favorite Missouri political show, This Week in Missouri Politics, TWMP Daily hosted Missouri Farm Bureau President Garrett Hawkins. Jake Croson, the editor of the Missouri Times, was the host of the show, and he was joined by Democrat lobbyist Aaron Schrimpf. Garrett and the gang talked about a whole host of agriculture issues, and we're going to start with Garrett's view on the overall Missouri farm economy.
Well, you have really tough commodity prices across the board, except cattle continue to be the bright spot right now. Just because we're at such a low inventory of beef cows in the country and where we're at with the cattle cycle. So, but we've also seen volatility that we can talk about. But from a row crop standpoint, it is a challenging time. Like for folks to pencil out a profit is very difficult. So as people wrap up harvest, there are some really challenging conversations that are happening with lenders right now as people try to make plans for 2026. You think back to last December, it was pretty remarkable as Congress was loading up a Christmas tree of goodies for an omnibus spending bill. Ultimately, President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance weighed in. Congress sloughed off everything except for ag, disaster, and economic assistance, because they recognized at the time just what a tough situation farmers and ranchers were facing across the country. And that's why the president and others are saying yet again that assistance is needed, and we've been saying that for some time.
Jake asked, what areas of Missouri agriculture have been hit the hardest? Here's what Garrett said.
Soy, corn, cotton, rice, it's your major row crops. There are several factors that go into that. We've got huge supplies, one. We've had volatility in the international market, right? In the name of China, they're finally stepping up after the president's visit to Southeast Asia to make some purchases. But, you have an administration that's focused on trying to right the ship in terms of U.S. trade policy and trying to address unfair trade practices. And patience that I think has been felt throughout the ag community has also led to some nervousness of needing to see progress in the form of not just new trade deals that have been inked, but the sales that need to come as a result of the trade deals that the president is negotiating. So there's just a lot at play. And then finally, you have input prices. Input prices that continue to be persistently high across the board, double-digit increases over the last few years.
Then Garrett gave a little bit of history about trade deals.
And back in my early Farm Bureau days as a young staffer, everyone was talking about the potential for a new WTO agreement, a Doha round of negotiations. And there was so much excitement in D.C. that we were going to tear down tariffs, we were going to address non-tariff trade barriers, and guess what? Nothing happened. Everything fizzled. And through the years, as we have had trade disputes that are brought forth in the WTO by U.S. negotiators, it'll take sometimes a decade to try to see it all the way through the process and ultimately get a result that results in more market access for U.S. farmers and ranchers. So then we start down the road of bilateral deals. We saw some during the George W. Bush years. We saw the first 4 years of the Obama administration languish. Nothing happened in the trade space while we had trade deals pending that George W. Bush, then president, had negotiated. And then during the second half of the Obama administration, we started to see a few deals inked. Then we saw Trump won, right? And we saw a new approach to trade that led to volatility, but also this vision that we needed to do better in improving market access. Then you have the Biden 4 years where nothing happened in the trade space. Nothing. So you get to a president who has a total different look at the world from what we have seen, right? And now tariffs are the blunt force instrument that are being used to bring countries to the table, not just to improve market access, but he's actually using it to negotiate peace, which is exactly what's been the strategy in the Middle East. So short-term pain for what we hope will be more meaningful progress in market access than we have seen in my 20 years. Because it's amazing, guys, as I sit down with representatives from the U.S. Trade Rep's office, they actually feel like they are free to actually work on technical barriers to trade that oftentimes they just get sloughed off to the side because they're not high priority enough, but they're the issues that keep us out of markets. European Union is one of the worst for keeping our protein out of their market or throwing up a red flag about a GMO trait. So that's what is exciting from my standpoint. If you're a true trade policy person who's followed this for years, you see that we're actually talking about issues that don't make headlines but will make a difference in the long term of improving market access for us.
Jake asked about net farm income reports, and Garrett explained why sometimes the numbers can be a little bit misleading.
I mean, you've got cattle numbers, where cattle prices are at that overall help boost that number. You also have government support that factors into. I mean, if you were to start breaking down where the parts of net farm income, you see that the reliance on government assistance because of where the markets are at, you see that in the numbers as well. Then obviously it doesn't. You go anywhere in the state and you visit with people and you're going to hear about persistently high input prices, what it takes to put out a crop, harvest a crop, even what it takes to raise livestock these days. Like, it is so costly. Everything that we touch costs more. We saw that rise during the pandemic, and nothing's quite came back down after the supply chain constraints.
After that discussion on big picture macro issues, Jake brought it closer to home and asked about Missouri topics, particularly the Missouri Farm Bureau health plans.
Passage of health plans was really a passion project, not just for me, but for our members, who have for years have said that they have been left behind by failed federal health policies that have driven up the cost of health insurance for those who are self-employed. So farmers, small business owners, individuals, right? And we saw this when the Affordable Care Act passed. We were concerned about the segment that we represent being left behind. And what we've seen through the years is that it just gets worse. When you hear people that open their renewal notice and they see that their premium's going to go up 30-40%. And for a farm family now paying $2,500, $3,000 a month for basically a high deductible plan, it really eats into your ability to provide for your family. And in my first few years as president, as Missouri Farm Bureau president, what I heard over and over again is this: it was not sustainable, that some of our members were choosing to go uninsured, which is absolutely alarming when you think that you're one potential catastrophe away from losing part or everything. And then people looking for alternative means. And what we learned was that there are other states who had received approval by their respective state farm bureaus to be able to offer health coverage that operates outside of but alongside of the marketplace. And so we started that conversation. Unfortunately, 3 years later, it came to fruition, and January 1, we will be live, in which our members will be able to consider Missouri Farm Bureau for their health needs.
And Missouri isn't the only state that's done this. There's several others.
Yeah, there's more than a dozen now, actually. So it's proven. Tennessee Farm Bureau was the first. They've been doing this for more than 75 years. Kansas, Indiana followed next. They've been in the business for over 5 years. Texas, South Dakota.
On a previous edition of the Farm Show, back in August, we had a conversation with State Representative Cameron Parker from Campbell, Missouri, about her Water Preservation Act. Garrett gave a little bit more color on the bill as well.
You look to the west and you see the pressures all around water. And certainly Missouri is a state where we have water resources, particularly in the Boot Hill. But yet you see what's happening elsewhere, and you can see the day in which major users would want to export water from Missouri to those areas. And so this is actually a forward-looking bill to actually make sure that Missouri has a regulatory framework in place.
So what was the situation prior to the bill? That Jamie was saying that people could just export our water, and there was
wide open.
Yeah, there's nothing we got out of it.
It was wide open. So that's the thing. And especially this issue started amongst Senator Bean, Senator Berger, our members in Southeast Missouri, who were recognizing conversations in areas to the south around water, and could see that there could perceivably be a real threat about people wanting to export major quantities of water. So that conversation started there, and then it spread throughout the state amongst our members saying, you know what, this makes sense to actually put in place a regulatory framework in which we can protect our most precious resource here in the state, and that's our water.
Garrett also talked about how Missouri Farm Bureau has been ahead of the national curve in terms of promoting agritourism.
Agritourism's been huge. I think we were the first state farm bureau to actually have an agritourism committee. We pursued legislation to provide liability protection. We offer signage to our farm bureau members to use to display on their agritourism venues. So, that has been a true bright spot where people who are traditional in their farming operations finding a way to diversify income, but also new entrants into agriculture finding a home in agritourism. But, just overall, though, these tough economic times, we are seeing just a decline overall in farm numbers, and that's what's most alarming to me.
Yeah.
And again, a little history lesson. Decades ago, American Farm Bureau commissioned a study. They called it Making American Agriculture Productive and Profitable. And it was a look ahead of what American agriculture would look like in 2019 in the centennial of the American Farm Bureau, which, again, by the way, Missouri Farm Bureau was formed 4 years prior as the first state farm bureau. So the movement was born here. But one of the key takeaways of that study was the projection that the middle of agriculture would fall out and that we would see larger farms as well as more smaller niche operations. Unfortunately, that's what you're seeing. The pressure, the input cost pressure, and just where commodity prices are, you do see overall a decrease in the number of the middle, if you will, and you see more numbers on the edges. So you see this evolution, but we continue to look for opportunities to, at every chance, to bring the kids home. You hear me talk about it all the time. What is it going to take to bring our kids home to the farm or to the rural community? And you can't bring them home to the farm if there's no opportunity in the community and if the community has died around you.
Yep.
That's why we work on quality of life issues like health care and access to affordable health coverage.
And no matter the time of year, a good topic for Missouri Farm Bureau is the state fair. Here's what Garrett had to say.
It's been great in recent years to see the interest by the governor and the legislature in providing an infusion of funds to do some really critical, not just updates, but actually plan for the future and how we're going to continue to tell the story of agriculture and what really is the premier showcase. So just so much excitement. You could feel it in and out of our building that despite the farm economy, that time at the state fair for many farm families is the family reunion. It's the time to escape from some of the everyday routine and just enjoy the camaraderie of being there, feeling tradition. There's so much tradition on the fairgrounds with the things that happen, but yet always an infusion of the new. But it's funny, when you talk to fellow members, fellow families, they consistently do the same things every year. They look forward to the same eateries, the same food stands, the same events, the concerts, etc. It just really is such a showcase of Missouri agriculture that we always look forward to every year.
So what's ahead in the next legislative session? Garrett says the real work starts just next month in December.
Missouri Farm Bureau has one of the largest delegate bodies of any state farm bureau. We'll have between 600 and 700 county leaders representing all areas of the state in our business session Monday afternoon and Tuesday morning, in which they debate, amend, and ultimately vote and approve the policies that will take us into 2026. And so, but I can tell you, I can guarantee Guarantee property rights will be a signature component of our legislative agenda in 2026 and beyond, just as it has been in recent years. Why is that? In large part, this fundamental shift in power generation and transmission that's necessitating a conversation about land use.
And this is where Garrett noted that Senate Leader Cindy O'Laughlin pays close attention to energy issues.
She was down in my neck of the woods, just north of me, looking at a solar project that has been very controversial. And so, it's important we approach this conversation from the standpoint that one, it is important for the general public to recognize that the infrastructure we enjoy today has been built on the backs of farmers and landowners for decades, right? Why is that? Well, ultimately, we needed electrification to the farmstead, and so we were large pushers for electrification. But now this modernization effort and this shift, particularly that we saw in the last 4 years, has led to an unfair burden on private property owners. And what we are trying to do is elevate the conversation and say farmers and landowners deserve a seat at the table. They deserve to have their voice heard, because in many instances their private property rights are being trampled. And we've seen that in Missouri, rights trampled for private gain, and that simply isn't fair, isn't right. We're having this conversation in Missouri, and we are leading the conversation within American Farm Bureau as well for national conversations.
Okay, we've got to leave it there for now. That was Missouri Farm Bureau President Garrett Hawkins on This Week in Missouri Politics TWMP Daily, shows put together, in this case, by Jake Crozen, Kelton Turner, and special guest, Democrat lobbyist Aaron Schrimpf. The TWMP Daily is usually hosted by Scott Fawn. This time, Jake had the hosting duties. You can find them on YouTube at This Week in Missouri Politics. And as an added bonus, if you follow This Week in Missouri Politics on Facebook and on X.com, you can watch their TWMP dailies live. Just set up your notifications and you'll be notified every time they go live. When we come back, we will take a look at the earnings report, the Q3 earnings, and the major takeaways from Corteva. You're listening to The Farm Show on Westplex Talk 104.5. We'll be right back.